Good morning, one and all, and welcome to the latest 1904 Club Hull City podcast. Coming to you after City's fantastic win at Deepdale last night. And we are joined by somebody who's not been around for a while, but he's in a car park. One of my favourite places, if you watch if you watch my Facebook live videos. Fletch is with us this morning in his car, Peter Kay style.
Yes, definitely. This is the exact location where we all decided Ruben Sayers would be a fantastic appointment for Hull City. And now with Sergei Yakirovich, and on a lovely positive note, I'm probably going to cast my spell again of negative doom at some point as I've popped my head up after about 8 weeks again. But it's nice to be back. And it sounded chaotic last night. And long may it continue, I think, because they thrive on it.
They were fantastic. Before I get to Burnsy, Catherine sends her apologies, but her message to everybody today is that she just loves everybody. So she's obviously very happy with the fact that City won again last night. And somebody else that is ecstatic that City won at Preston on the back of winning at Southampton is Burnsy. Was at Deepdale last night. What a night, Burnsy.
Yeah, I mean, the only chaos was the ruckus at the end. I thought it was a really controlled and controlling performance. I might venture the best performance of the season so far in many ways. You looked at I don't know what marks you've given to the players, but everybody did the job last night, subs included. And there were so many positives out of it. It was great. Gelhardt coming back and looking really lively, coming off the bench. Yu Hirakawa making his debut, and you're thinking, wow, there's something there. His first 3 touches, controlled, beat a man, set up McBurnie for the 3rd goal. Famawo, his best game, getting his first goal. Miller looking sharper, getting a goal. Akintola setting it up. There was just so much to admire about it. And all this against the backdrop of playing one of your promotion rivals with the 3rd best defence in the division on a pitch that their manager basically, I'm paraphrasing here, had said you can't really play football on it. And City played them off the park, and 3-0 was maybe not even a fair reflection of City's dominance. So all round, a fantastic night. And we'll talk about it all, plus the injury situation and the transfer situation, and loads of messages to the 1904 club.
Yeah, I think what you said there is pretty much spot on. I saw the Norwich win at West Brom and thought if that was the score at Deepdale, that probably would have been a fair reflection. So dominant were the Tigers from start to finish. Yeah, Preston had a couple of moments, a couple of dangerous balls in the first half, but every team in the Championship is going to create something at some point in a game. So that is to be expected, but they saw that out relatively comfortably. And once they got the goal through Liam Miller and wonderful counter-attacking from Crooks to release Big Dave, and Dave stormed away, and a wonderful pass across to Liam Miller and a clinical finish. But yeah, I thought they were. I kind of agree, Benji. For me, it's up there with their most complete performances. We said earlier in the season that they had a habit of playing for 45 minutes, like at Norwich. They were terrible for 45 minutes, but got it 0-0, and were excellent in the second half. There were so many games fairly recently where we were all saying they're only turning up for half a game. Well, last night they assumed control fairly early on and never relinquished it until the end, and it was just a fantastic performance. Fletch, how impressed were you with the fact that they've gone to Southampton and scored first, got themselves 2-0 in front and won the game there? Obviously a little bit more squeaky bum time in the end by virtue of the fact that Southampton reduced the deficit by half. No such drama last night. From the moment that McBurnie scored at the start of the second half, the game was dead and buried. How impressed have you been with that application? 2 really difficult away games, but they've got 6 points. They've scored 5 goals and they've only conceded once in those 2 games.
Well, historically, I always find that City have a knack of being the other way around. And what I mean by that is they've, particularly under Steve Bruce in 2015-16, they were the most impenetrable side at home. But then they used to bottle occasions away from home where they should have picked up all 3 points. I remember they lost 2-0 at Rotherham, for example, lost at Leeds, who were at the wrong end of the table. And, away wins are the most cherished thing, I think, because they're so valuable and they're so hard to come by. When you look at away form in comparison to home form, and yeah, it displayed two different styles of victory, and one is a more determined and gritty performance in the second half, as you say, Baz, at Southampton, after putting themselves in a decent position. And then, as Paul Heckingbottom testified last night, and possibly paraphrasing, but he said words to the effect of they've been dominated for 90 minutes, and that goes to show that they're fearless. That shows that they're not afraid of anybody in this division, and they're showing the characteristics of being a team that are not going to necessarily underestimate anybody. And I think, if anything, some teams are going to underestimate City, and it's a case of when do they stop underestimating them? Because at the minute, they're just creeping away silently under the radar. There's still people online who are suggesting that their bubble's going to burst at some point, but it isn't in the short term at the moment. And the victory last night at Preston personified what they can do when they're absolutely at it. To be 3-0 up on a boggy pitch, as you say, away from home, and the manner of the goals as well. The Akintola assist, I don't think will get the credit it deserves, because not only has he managed to get up to pace to get away from his marker on that bumpy surface, the second touch to take him into the penalty area to allow him to stay at full speed, and then putting the weight of pass across for Miller to get that first goal is going to be, for me, a really sort of a goal which isn't going to get the respect it deserves. I thought Vermeer's finish for when he was in the penalty area was superb. McBurnie was just, McBurnie just does whatever he wants at this rate. He's starting to score bicycle kicks, and they've just got such a good blend of characters, because I think the way that Osmajic, he doesn't need a lot to get wound up in games. And, John Lundstrom, Ollie McBurnie, players like that are the ones that can sort of draw that out of people who might be a little bit fragile when it comes to keeping their anger in check. So they've got some really good ingredients. They've got the best away form in the division at the moment, which for me is incredible. And long may it continue.
He is a mentalist, though, Osmajic, but we'll come to that in a bit. Burns, it was just the way they systematically took Preston to pieces. As Fletch says, Akintola's run was, Crooks's presence of mind to free him was fantastic, and Crooks was brilliant. But Akintola, that heavy touch, it was almost like a heavy touch, but it was what was needed to get him up the pitch and away. And you didn't want to have lots of little touches on that pitch. So you'd see so many times in games where players would overrun that, the ball across would get intercepted, it would be shanked or whatever. But it was inch perfect for Miller, and Miller's managed to stay on the side. It was a really crisp finish. But there was so many positives, as you say, you coming off the bench defensively. I thought Hughes and Egan were brilliant. Coyle, Firmino. I thought Amir in the centre of midfield was exceptional. Regan, to the last kick of the ball of 96 minutes, 97 minutes, they were pressing. Their energy was incredible. And something that Hecky said after the game in the press conference, which really stuck with me, was he talked about City's energy and their graft and how much they wanted it, how much their desire was the thing that shone through. And that was, for me, those words really impressed me. And it was a performance of, yes, there was quality all the way through the team. McBurnie, his defensive work was astonishing. Miller getting back and playing left wing back to help out Firmino. Akintola, before he went off, was very good. But it was a complete team performance. But it's that heart and desire is why they are where they are.
Yeah, without a shadow of doubt, really, they're really together as a squad and a team. Somebody makes a point about Yu Hirakawa coming in. Paul Hood says to the 1904 club, Hirakawa seemed to fit in seamlessly last night when he came on. Says a lot about the camaraderie of this team, that he already looks like part of the group. And Dane to the 1904 club, DJ Dane, 1984, says, over the moon after two massive away wins. Looks like Hirakawa is a great addition. I'm surprised Bristol let him come to us. I think a few people are, really. With the transfer embargo, I thought we had to be one out to get one in. Is this not the case, or is Palmer the one out up the Tigers, says Dane? Well, we'll talk about Casey Palmer because he looks to be on his way, as far as I'm aware, anyway, but we shall wait and see. And Ben Stansfield says, I don't know what to say, Baz. Just wow, we were amazing, controlled the game from minute one. We really do have some serious attacking options now. You looked class. Up the Tigers. I'd been reading a bit of stuff about Yu Hirakawa from the Bristol City fans, and generally they loved him. Thought he was a really good player, really good winger. But the reason they thought maybe he was going out because defensively he didn't do a lot. But he was snapping into challenges. He was like a little terrier out there last night, and I was impressed with his work rate as well as his skill. So he's set his standard now, hasn't he? In terms of at least the minimum level we would expect from him in terms of what we saw last night. And he's an exciting addition to the squad. So well done him. And remind me to just going back to Southampton and last night, because the second goal came from a set piece, because we were lamenting on the last 1904 club the poor quality of the corners. Hey presto, score from a corner at Southampton because they went deep and scored from a corner last night. So good stuff.
Just two things on that.
Learned, improving all the time.
Absolutely. The biggest compliment I can pay to you last night was that he looked like he'd been at the club all season. He didn't look like a player that I saw in his tracksuit at the training ground on Monday afternoon, Monday morning. So that's that. But I mean, the Bristol City fans are. I've spoken to quite a few people that are quite surprised that they've let him go. I think he just doesn't fit into their system. But it was seamless last night, and he looks a heck of a player. On the set pieces, Fletch, I spoke to Sergei last Thursday about set pieces because they were bottom of the table in terms of. I think they were bottom of the table with 3 goals from set pieces all season. So I asked Jurkovic about it, and he basically said his phrase was the delivery man hasn't been very good since Ryan Giles. So I wrote a piece on Friday last week thinking I'll keep that. That'll be a piece for next week about set pieces, about how he wants them to improve. And then they obviously score from a set piece at St Mary's. And then last night they score from a set piece at Deepdale. So clearly something has clicked. The delivery, there were a couple from Amir to start with that weren't great last night, but they, it should be a fundamental part of the game. And when you've got players like Egan and Charlie Hughes, Crooks in there, why would you not? McBurnie's an incredible header of a football. Why would you not be trying to find that little bit of quality? And obviously they've been able to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, set plays in the Premier League now are part and parcel, and they've been more popular than ever. And like you say, Baz, there's clear and obvious threats in McBurnie and Hughes, who popped up against Sheffield Wednesday previously as well from that deep free kick. But I guess, not to be devil's advocate, but the amount of homework and analysis that goes in from all the clubs in professional football now, because there's so much, it's calculated down to, the last millimetre of a step of a foot. Some managers have said about, you need to be stood in this place. And, if people now, we've got set play analysts, etc., who can sit and watch corners and free kicks and throw-ins all day, then they've got to think of new ways. They've got to, it's like a vicious circle. Sometimes you have to go unorthodox to make a set piece work, and now we seem to be going back round to the old school fashion of, stick it on the penalty spot, stick it on the front post or back post, and there seems to be a little bit of joy coming out of it. I think it's one of those things where, Giles' delivery in open play to McBurnie is awesome, and Giles has said before about, he doesn't even have to look up to know where he is. That's just the understanding that they've got. So where they are at the minute, I mean, look how many goals they've scored. It's not like they're depending on set plays to get them through. It's just nice to have another way of scoring in the armoury, if you like.
Burnsy, what gets me is, for those people that criticise City and say they're gonna fall away, when you look, they've been there. Let's be honest, they've been there all season. Whenever you look at any form guide, whether it be the last 4, 6, 12, whatever, insert any number, they're always there. They're always top 4. Some form guys they've been top 2. Whatever the amount of games that you look back on, City are consistent. They don't lose when they lose games, which hasn't been very often. They then go and win 3 or 4, and so they are. Somebody said to me last night, we need to be more consistent. And I was like, well, actually, I think they are really consistent. As Fletch says, they're the best. They obviously, after last night's win, They've got the best away record in the league, along with a team that play in black and white. And I can't remember their name. 24 points they've taken. No team's got a better record. No team has taken more points since October away than City. So they're there on merit. This isn't a fluke. This isn't they've come up. They've had a really bad start and they've sort of come up and, you know, it's because everybody else is rubbish. They are there because they are consistently winning football matches, aren't they?
What is it? 1 loss in 8, and I'll come to the improvement, but aren't they now with a little 6-point cushion over 7th?
I mean, that's before other teams play tonight. But yeah, you're right.
Right. Okay. But yeah, we'll see what happens. That cushion might, you know, the gap might become a little smaller. But that's a step in the right direction. And they are improving. You know, witness the 2 goals from corners in the last 2 games. And you're getting players back. I was really encouraged by how sharp Gelhardt looked when he came on last night. And I know he's still got injuries. But his big problem, you know, and it's a nice problem to have in a few weeks' time, might be trying to fit everybody in. Jellum decided what's his best lineup. It's a nice problem to have for a coach, and I'm sure he'll sail through it because the big fella seems to be sailing through everything at the moment. Tiger Beck messaged just into the 1904 club. Best Tiger Beck 90 says best performance since we beat Sheffield United away last season. What has made the difference despite the injuries? Concerned about the touchline cards cropping up. They'll soon be beating Matt Crook's tally. It's a fair point. We'll come to that ruck at the end because I suspect there's a big fine coming from the FA for that. Let me read a couple more messages. This in to the 1904 club. Loads of messages. Hold on. Miles Fletcher says the resemblance to the 0708 squad grows stronger each week. A good mix of youth and experience that know how to get a result at this level. Only criticism is that it wasn't more. Oliver Harsley says absolutely elated with the mesmerising attacking football we displayed yet again, and coupled that with tightening things up at the back. Would definitely hand Sergei and his coaches new deals to strengthen our hand whenever someone tries to come and poach him from us. And I have to say, Dave Weldrake says to the 1904 club, we need to tie Sergei up to a 5-year deal.
One of the things for me as well, I know there's a
answer on that. Is there any moment that
we lost? You went a bit weird there, Burnsy. Something happened to your mouth. Your connection was a bit odd.
Right.
So just repeat what you said.
It's not a great surprise. I don't think I have the moment. Did you get the bit about Dave Weldrake suggesting a new 5-year deal? A couple of people suggesting to the 1904 club that he needs a new deal. He doesn't need a new deal. His son's just signed for Inter Milan. His pension's sorted. Yeah,
and I think his release clause at City is quite significant as well. So I think that's something they'll probably look at. Adrian likes to reward success, doesn't he? And you know, whilst they've not achieved anything in terms of promotion yet, they're having an incredible season. And I really like the fact that he's learning. And I think you made a point there that they're getting stronger. You look at the bench last night. You've got you on the bench. You've got Gelhardt coming back. Lundstrom. You know, Giles is not too far away. Carl Joseph should hopefully be back. If not at the weekend, then at Blackburn, and there'll be 1 or 2 more arrivals hopefully in the window. So, you know, if they can, I know we keep saying about keeping players fit, but he's learning. And I think now they've played everybody once. He's learned as well, and tactically they were spot on last night. Really interesting. I know there's a bit of a running joke online about everybody, fans of other teams saying Hull City are the worst team that they've played all season, having lost. Well, I've seen a lot of comments, Fletch, from Preston fans saying how City were fantastic, and that was the theme amongst the Preston press pack last night. Actually, that they were saying, you know, how City were very good, right up there with the best teams they've seen all season. So I think that's testament to just how good they were last night, but how much they are improving, and that is the exciting thing. They're 4th in the table. They're on the verge of already surpassing last season's points total at this stage of the season, and they are only going to get stronger. They are getting better. That is the exciting thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not just picking up on Miles's comment because he's got the best surname in the world, but I do see the element of the 07-08 factor in this Hull City side. It's a side which is written off at the start of the season by the majority. It's got an interesting blend of players within it with certain characteristics which you need. I've said for years that Hull City, for me, probably since the Nigel Adkins era, where they were just too nice. They were too nice of a team, whether their midfield was a bit small and they were getting beaten in the aerial duels. There was always games where you'd go to like Millwall or somewhere of that regard, where if they were good in the air, if they were good at set pieces, you always got turned over. But City this year have just got different elements to their game in the sense of they can play on the counter and respect the fact that they'll let a team have possession if they want to. They've also got the knack of, as we've seen with Preston, being able to have lots of shots at goal, make it like a basketball game, and make it really entertaining. Because some of the players and the characters in this team thrive on that. I mean, Ollie McBurnie, John Lundstrom are crazy characters, but they're crazy characters in a positive way because they wear a black and amber shirt. And, to have a manager as well who clearly isn't wedded to one system, is quite happy to take the advice of those behind him and tweak things. That I like it when there's a football team in Hull City that's flying under the radar, and that's from your point, Baz, about most fans saying, Hull City have beaten us and they were this, that, and the other. Fine, let them think that if you're a Hull City fan, because the old adage. I mean, Sergei probably won't do this, but if you wrote a negative piece, Baz, he could put it on the dressing room wall and say, "Go on, there's your motivation. Out you go." There are still managers like that, and he doesn't need. When they're on a good run like this, they let the football do the talking, and they don't need to get Sergei and the rest of them to do the talking because they know the jobs. They're a good, honest, working bunch with an interesting blend, and as I said before, long may it continue because they're taking the Hull City fans on a really good journey at the moment.
Burnsy, you've got that bit of experience, haven't you, of things being pinned on dressing room walls?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any of my wise and judicious utterings have ever made dressing room walls. There's a few have made stadium walls.
Under Grant McCann, following the relegation, the predictions of that League One season were pinned on the wall, weren't they? McCann pinned yours on particularly.
Well, yeah, maybe. Did I say they might get relegated again, or they wouldn't go up?
I think you said they finished 15.
Right. Well, there you go. Well, that's life. On the available evidence, you've got to work at the time on the available evidence, haven't you? That would be my defence, my lord. And credit to them for that. And let's be honest, I'm not sure any of us this season were expecting City to be fourth in the table and still in with a shout of automatic promotion. And Baz, yeah, you definitely.
I mean, just to say that I covered all bases in the summer. I said they could finish 4th, 14th, or 24th, and that's it. That's on paper. So whatever this, I was covering all bases. So if they get promoted or get in the playoffs, I can go, But yeah, I mean, nobody thought that they'd be having this kind of season. Let's be honest, with the backdrop of last season, the embargo, and I think we doff a hat to everybody because the way they're going about it, the way they're playing, the attacking football, they're getting better defensively. I remember speaking to Louis Coyle after the Doncaster game, the Middlesbrough game at the start of December, when they were 4-0 down at half time. And Louis sort of said, I said to Louis, does this need to be a bit of a watershed moment defensively? Because you're conceding too many goals. And if you look since then, there has been a marked improvement. They've looked much more solid as a group, much more organised. And that's been borne out by the clean sheets they've had over the last few weeks, the way they've looked much better away from home. The challenge, of course, now is to, they've got a lot of home games coming up in the next 4 or 5 weeks. I think, including the cup game, I think they've got six home games in the next 8 matches. So they've got to find a way of teams will pay them a different respect now. They'll come. I think a lot of teams will come and be low block, try and frustrate them, a bit like we saw with Stoke. They're going to have to be the team now at home that come out and try and force the issue and find a way to break teams down, because they are now going to be at home a different proposition for teams that set up against them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but it's can you get the ball wide? Can you get the wingers in one-on-ones with a fullback and try and get around the back of them? Can Amir, as he was doing laterally in the game last night, and sit in that pocket of space outside the opposition box and try and slip little passes through and things like that? Can Crooks get in there? So they are improving, and I'm sure he'll find a way as a coach to work his way through the low blocks that, you're right, will probably be coming. Not in fairness, most teams, when they've come along, have opened up, haven't they? And City do look better on the counter. But if you were looking at it as an opposition manager, maybe you're thinking, well, we'll sit in and see just how good they are at trying to break down a defence, and we'll go at them on the break. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll maybe, I don't know whether we'll have time, come to the Swansea game a little later on the 1904 Club this morning. It's this morning. Actually, it's this afternoon, isn't it? I'm jet lagged from going to Preston. Simon Watts says, we looked relentless last night. Sergei and his walking wounded continue to buck the odds and the so-called experts. The squad is likeable and has that 07-08 feel about it. My expectation for this season has been surpassed, but keep floating under that radar, and who knows? EREQX1 says we're winning the championship and the FA Cup easily, and gives us a fire emoji. Our City, our Stripe says Sergei seems to get what it means to play for this shirt, and it's shining through in the players' grit, determination, resilience, underdog spirit, and hard work. I love having a team with pride. Up the house, Tigers. And Harry Bullerman says, we were at a crossroads, you felt, after the Stoke game, but my word, did they take the right direction. Pace, power, organisation and fight. Everything you need to have a run at the playoffs. Now it's up to the home fans to bring the noise on Saturday, do our side of the bargain. And David Jones says, Slater brilliant again last night. Are the new deals for him and Coyley any closer to completion? There's a question for you from David Jones, Baz.
Talks remain ongoing, I believe, with Coyle. Not so sure about Slater. I spoke to him the other day, and I think nothing's moving yet. But that is something I think they would look to get going. Fletch, I know you've got to scoot. Just before you do, in terms of the playoff race, how do you see it? In terms of City of fourth, 3 points off the top. They've got games in hand. They've got a game in hand on a lot of teams around them. Of course, the Watford game coming up very, very soon. What's your assessment of the picture around the top six?
Oh, heck. Well, at the minute, you can't see Coventry being pulled back into it, but to keep the 07-08 theme alive. Do you remember when Watford was something like 11 points clear at the top in October, and then they ended up bottling it and lost to City in the playoff places? There seems to be, I know social media is only, tip of the iceberg, but it feels to me like there's quite a lot of bubble bursting going along around Middlesbrough, and I don't really understand why from what I've seen. I think there's going to be lots of different, chops and changes. It'll be interesting to see what the rest of the transfer market does, because January is always, and especially for Hull City, yes, they've brought in and they're on a 1-in, 1-out basis. I'll stick around for the Palmer chat if we come to it, but they've got to be really careful. I think they don't want to upset what they've got so far in terms of squad in the transfer market, but they also have to be conscious of the fact that, come deadline day, teams around them could just go hammer and tong and be able to bring in players from the Premier League on loan, etc. And it's all about making sure that these players come back fit and stay fit for me, because away from home now, from someone outside of it, I don't fear Hull City going anywhere and being, having their bellies rubbed, which is something that can happen in previous seasons. I remember under Steve Bruce 10 years ago, sometimes used to go to place and think, right, how many are we winning by? And we're not, for me, at that stage as yet. But you just know you're going to get an honest, gritty, determined performance wherever they go. Okay, they might not get the result. QPR is the example. But away from home, they look fine. They just got to get this home form continuous. They've got to churn out a couple of victories. And then the fans will be just as loud, just as noisy, and then long may it continue. You've got the full 0708 factor in effect there, and then it's all down to those around them, because there could be so many different, slip ups along the way. Teams could go on form. That's the unpredictability of the Championship. But if you need to, pin me to a position now, I'd say they're going to sneak into the playoffs.
Fletch, where are you going for your belly rubs? Because I quite fancy one of those.
Well, it's coming off this heated gilet at the moment, to be honest.
Let's tackle transfers. Let's tackle transfers, because obviously that's the other side issue. We know that there's the injuries. Shemi Ajay is going to be out, I believe, for about 7 weeks. So that could impact what they're going to do. Carl Joseph missed last night with an ankle problem, but we expect him back. As I said before, if not this weekend, then at Blackburn. Giles is expected back at Blackburn. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the injuries. Fletch, Casey Palmer going to Luton, that feels like, I think we all expected, given what happened earlier in the season when the manager wanted to pick him, having not picked him in the squad, he wanted to pick him for the Sheffield United game, and Palmer wasn't, for whatever reason, available. Then he got injured. I think there's a lot of people that think Palmer's got a lot of talent, but when you look at Casey's career trajectory, the amount of clubs he's had and what other managers have said about him kind of tallies up that he's a player with supreme talent, but never quite delivered. And his stats, 37 games, 1 goal, I think, for City, 1 assist or whatever it is. It's never really taken off for him, has it, since he came? And if they can get him out to bring somebody else in, which is what they're trying to do, it probably feels like good business. And he's got the World Cup coming up and he wants to play. Yeah.
And, you can't... It's disappointing when you look at the numbers to say 1 goal and 1 assist in the league, especially. I think I was excited when he came in, and the various episodes when it comes to injuries and that whole shenanigans that took place earlier in the season. And I think they're at a crossroads now where if there is a bit of negativity or more cons outweighing pros, if you like, to a certain player in the short term, then if Luton are happy to facilitate a loan move, first of all, it's a League One club that are coming in for him and not another Championship club, which might be a telltale of if there was any interest for him from elsewhere. Obviously, send him on his way with our best wishes, etc. He might come alive for Luton, and suddenly, as you say, with the World Cup coming up, he might rip it up in the 3rd tier. But if they're in this position where it's 1 in, 1 out, and you're not pinning your hopes on Palmer being the man who's going to be the leading charge to keep them in the top 6 from an attacking sense or a creativity sense, no problem from my point in letting him go to allow somebody else to come in and just freshen things up and give City something a little different.
Burnsy?
Well, yeah, I wish him well. I've always liked him as a player, but it's not really worked out. His last 2 appearances, he was putting a shift in the cup tie against Blackburn, and when he came on as again a sub in the league. But I think it's best from all parties that he moves on, because Sergei said he's not going to get many minutes, and he wants to be at the World Cup with Jamaica. So we wish him well with that. So can I just, on the transfer thing, Hirakawa, who was the 1 out to allow him as the 1 in?
So they had 1 space, as it turns out, in their squad. So that's been taken by Hirakawa. The Casey Palmer going allows Collier to come in, and we expect that to get signed off ahead of the weekend. It's pretty much done and dusted, I think. They also still want Kieran Dowell, so they're trying to do that. But the obvious one seems to be Brandon Williams, but nothing's really happened with that yet. So, he's not playing. He hasn't played. He's getting back fit. But I guess the thing is if you, given the defensive problems in terms of numbers and players, Ajay's obviously out for quite a while. Egan went off with cramp and what have you. Famewo obviously had a problem at Southampton, but was okay last night. But he's had his injury troubles. They don't want to leave themselves too short. Hence why they may well now, or they are going to look now at defensive reinforcements, I think. But that is easier said than done, because of the 1 in 1 out situation. So I still think there's a lot of wheeling and dealing to come. I know there's been a lot of questions about Charlie Hughes and Palace. There's nothing there. I don't know where that's. I think people are putting 2 and 2 together and getting 25 with Mark Gahey leaving. But I think Palace signed a young French defender in the summer as a possible replacement for Gahey. He's not really played. So there's nothing happening with Charlie Hughes at the minute. I've had conversations as recently as last night with Adjun about Charlie Hughes, and there's no intention to let him go in this window. But I think they do now. They are going to look at defensive cover, but it's not that, as I say, it's not quite that straightforward. Colley is almost done, and as I say, they still want Kieran Dowell as well. But as I say, you've got just over 10 days until the window closes on the 2nd of February at 7 o'clock. So there's 1 or 2 things bubbling away. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But it certainly won't be a dull end to the window. But as I said before, the biggest thing for me is keeping them all together. From what I understand, the deadline that Leeds could have recalled Joe Gowhart's now passed. There was never any doubt of Leeds recalling him to play him. But we know how January works. He scored a lot of goals. Somebody could have come in with 10 million quid, a panic, and they could have been sold. But that, from what I understand, can't happen now that the deadline has passed for Leeds to recall him. So he will be at City for the duration of the window, the season.
Just on the subject of Shemi Ajayi, Liam Marsh sends the 1904 club a tweet saying City were brilliant last night. Concerned, given his injury record, that Nigeria, City and Shemi himself wanted was allowed to play in a meaningless game at AFCON, especially considering the game time he'd already had. Liam says, bit disrespectful from Shemi, knowing how many games he's already missed. But I think if you're at a tournament and you're playing for your country, which is the sort of pinnacle of your career, playing for your country, and you're playing in a third place match in a major tournament, then you've every right to play it. I mean, it's very unfortunate given his injury situation that he's picked this up, Liam. But I think it was the right thing for him to do and play. Fletch, you want a word on that?
Just to jump on the back of that, and I think Shemi is, I'm not Nigerian, but I think he's very well respected in the in the nation of Nigeria, given his experience as a footballer. And African football is so passionate. To us, it's a 3rd or 4th place playoff, but for African football, it's absolutely everything. And I think even though they're not in the final, when we saw the madness of the final, any nation playing in a major tournament on the continent of Africa, they want to win absolutely everything. They'll be, nobody would have wanted to come last in the group stages. And I think for his reputation in Nigeria is probably one of the reasons why he's so revered there. And, if Shemi wants to play for his country, let him play for his country. Yeah,
I think it's easy after the event, isn't it? Perhaps hindsight, you say, look, it's the 3rd and 4th place game. He's played a lot. Apart from the dead rubber game at the end of the group stages, he's played every minute. He's been fantastic. Maybe we take him off, given his injury record, we take him off after 70 minutes. But Burnsy makes the point, and he's absolutely right. Everybody's got an opinion on 3rd and 4th place games at tournaments and what they are. But if you're out there, you're playing Egypt, it's still a big game. You want to finish 3rd. And I get it from Shemi's point of view, wanting to play. If he comes through it, nobody says anything. And everybody congratulates him on a fantastic tournament, one of the best players in the tournament. It's just, unfortunately, it's how it's gone. And nobody... I think hindsight's always our best friend, isn't it? Aren't they? And it's easy to look back and go, well, he should have been taken off at this point or that point. It is what it is, I guess, as Billy Davis would say, and we have to just get on with it. It's a blow for City, but more for Shemi, because he's been in great form generally for City. 1 or 2 blemishes, I think, against Middlesbrough and whatnot, but he's been very good. He's had a very good tournament. Nigeria, after the disappointment of the penalty shootout, which Shemi unfortunately missed, to miss out on the World Cup, that's a good response. They wanted to win it, obviously, but they didn't. They've gone close, and I think you just have to, sometimes I think the AFCON gets a bit of disrespect because it's kind of out of when it's played. It's kind of because it's not in Europe. I sometimes think it's looked down upon by one or two, and I think we have to accept that for Shemi, that's his European Championship, and it's massive, and you can't begrudge players wanting to play for their country, even if we might think the third and fourth place game is pointless or isn't as serious. Give him a rest because he's got big city game. I think you have to walk a day in his shoes and understand that yes, City pay his wages. Yes, City that's his club, but that's a big game for him and his family and his country as well. So it's just unfortunate. It is what it is. We just have to get on with it.
Liam, thank you very much for your message. We might not have agreed with you on the 1904 club, but half of the message anyway. It gave us something to discuss.
I get the point. I totally get the point.
Stephen, yeah, exactly. Stephen Franklin, just a general message saying, what more can we say but dare to dream time? Margaret says, just need to see more of this form at home now. And Tony Silver says, it's a football miracle. I'll get to more of your messages to the 1904 club in a bit. Just sticking on sort of injuries. Akintola's injury, is that serious, Baz? What do we know?
Well, the gaffer said to me last night it was cramp. So he got clattered, didn't he, just before half time, and had some treatment. Then he carried on, and then came back out for the start of the second half and went down with the ball nowhere near him. And that was within a couple of minutes. I mean, officially it was 48 minutes when you came on. So the gaffer didn't seem particularly worried about it. He didn't seem particularly worried about Egan going off at the end. Said both were cramp, but you know how it goes with City. Suddenly cramp becomes a hamstring injury and they're out for 2 months. So we're with the gaffer on Thursday, and Ollie McBurnie as well. I can't wait to catch up with Ollie about things. So I don't think there's anything necessarily to worry about. As I said before, Carl Joseph, and he rolled his ankle at Southampton, having been clattered 2 or 3 times in addition to that. So the hope he could be back on Saturday. They might not risk him and keep him back for Blackburn away, which is also when Gilo is expected back. But we'll get another update on how the walking wounded are on Thursday.
Sam Davidson says on the subject of Ollie McBurnie to the 1904 club, do you think the impact of Ollie McBurnie's demand on the players around him is being underestimated? I think he's made average-looking players of last season look great. I don't know whether it's been underestimated or not. I think most people seem to recognise the impact he's had on the squad. Fletch, you got a view on this?
Yeah, I think with Ollie McBurnie, if you followed the Championship for a long time, what you see is what you get with Ollie McBurnie. He's been a fox in the box. He's been able to rough people up around him, and he's been able to have a good understanding with people like Ryan Giles, who is now playing. And this is the thing which I think is really important for City in general, is they're oozing confidence in nearly every position, if not every position, in this season. I referenced it earlier about Ryan Giles being able to swing a ball in towards him and just knowing that he's there. And if you was in a relegation battle last year, you're probably over analysing things. And I just think that he brings a calmness and a demeanour from his Championship record where players can look at him and expect something from him, even if he's playing at a 5 or a 6 out of 10.
He's
and on
phenomenal.
that note, I'm going to shoot.
Thanks, Fletch.
See you, Fletch.
Burnsy McBurnie is just phenomenal. I mean, and I know he'd not scored for 4 or 5 games before last night, but he got that assist at Southampton. He got his assists last night. Every time there was a corner or a free kick coming in the box, in City's box, he was back there heading it away. Preston had a couple of corners in quick succession in the second half. He was there. He headed both of them away. And then he's up the other end. He's winning tackles. He's holding the ball up. He scored a good goal. Admittedly, the goalkeeper should have saved it, but even so, you get it on target and you ask the question. I mean, I think he'll relish having you on that side, because he's missed Giles, and City have missed Giles massively, haven't they? But Miller looked a lot sharper last night. But having you on the other side, who got one touch, crossing the box. I think McBurnie thrives on those early balls. There was one in the first half that Crooks put in. It was a wonderful cross to the back post, and he was inches away on the dive from getting to it. But he's just, one of the Preston lads said to me last night that he's the best number 9 in the Championship. And when you look at him, he's just phenomenal, isn't he?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that Scotland do come along and say, right, come on, son, let's take you to the World Cup, because there can't be many better Scottish strikers than him at the moment. And just thinking back to Southampton, I mean, he set up Kyle Joseph for the goal, but the amount you talk about his defensive work, the amount of defensive headers at the edge of his own box when Southampton were putting on pressure was outstanding. I mean, he looks out on his feet at times, but he still somehow dips into this reserve of energy and keeps going and getting a foot in and a challenge in when they're under the cosh and everything like that. And he's been fantastic, and his attitude is he's just a joy to watch, and I should imagine he's just a joy to have round the changing room, and lifts everybody. I mean, I think back to comments from Kyle Joseph early in the season in terms that, Ollie McBurnie had talked to him about his finishing, etc., etc. And you can see the benefit of that chat. I don't think that the Kyle Joseph finish against Southampton would probably have come last season from Kyle Joseph, and maybe not even earlier this season. I don't know, but he's made a difference, so much difference to other players round him. Did he get man of the match last night? Because there were so many contenders. Did he get man of the match?
I give him man of the match. Yeah, I have to supply a man of the match for the paper, and that's who I gave it to. There was, as you say, a lot of contenders, but I think just on the basis of his awareness for the goal for Akeem Famewo, which is very reminiscent of Kyle Joseph's goal on Saturday. He wins the ball, holds it up, and instead of trying to force the goal, has the presence of mind to lay it off, and it was a very, very similar goal. And then his goal as well, and just his overall, his performance, his tracking back, his defensive work, getting up the pitch. There was everybody, even Panda didn't have a huge amount to do, but on that pitch, he did what he had to do very well. He was very assured. And when you think back to the Preston game earlier in the season, when he gifted one of his kickouts, gifted the goal to North End, there was no, there were a couple of questions raised about his kicking on Saturday, but he was very assured in pretty much everything he did. He was well protected last night for the most part, but yeah, back to front, they were all brilliant. They were all brilliant, but I just gave it to McBurnie just because of his goal as assist and his overall work rate, which is just that. And now he's at 10 championship goals for the season in 18 games, and that's with a fairly lengthy layoff in the middle of it as well. So like I say, he's been without question the best signing of anybody has made in the Championship this season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Lemon Kid says, are Lundstrom, McBurnie and Crooks the new Brabin, Whitney and Perry, City Aggro? We finally have a team on the pitch and on the bench that understand why and how you carry out the dark arts of the game. It's clever and, in my opinion, wonderful to see, and it works perfectly. Hull City Oz to the 1904 club. We've sort of discussed this already. Do we need to look at extra cover at centre-back if Egan is injured again, given Ajayi's out? Bashir Humphreys was mooted, but he seems to be playing for Burnley a bit now. Lee Robinson just says, surely we're in the top 2 conversation. Outstanding performance last night. I'd agree with you, Lee. I still think they're in the conversation. Clement Attlee, not that one, because that would be a miracle from beyond the grave, says, this is the most capable, inspiring and admirable City manager since Steve Bruce. All City fans should have a portrait of him on their wall. Pep Guardiola does. And Danny Hawkins says, I like the fight this team has. I know Prutz doesn't, but if we keep getting into scuffles, they won't go past just fine after fine. It won't go to the extent of point deductions, right? Also, if the club needs any 1p pieces to pay the fine, I've got a jar of them to contribute. It need to be a big jar. They must be in line after last night's latest ruckus for $100,000 fine. I might suspect, Baz. What do we know?
Yeah, I'll come to that in just a second. I just wanted to add one more thing on McBurnie, if I can. 16 goal involvement, 16 goal involvements. So he's got 10 goals and 6 assists. So he's played 18 times and he's got 16 goal involvements, which just, stats, you can make stats look anything, but that's in black and white, just how effective he is for this football team in this league. But yeah, look, I mean, last night was another one of them, wasn't it? It was really hard to obviously you'll know because you were there at Deepdale. We're sat. If you know Deepdale, the smaller stand where the benches are, we're on the opposite side at the very back of the main stand at Deepdale. We don't have any. There's no tellies. There's no monitors, and it's all very cramped. It was very hard to see exactly what had happened last night, apart from lots of bodies. And to be fair, I'm spectacled for a reason, so I can't see that far. But yeah, I mean, Osmajic obviously went in on Lundstram. Clearly, Lundstram had said something to anger him, a bit like at Stoke with Ben Pearson. Then he slaps a nut on him and gets rightly sent off. He's a mentalist and he's up for another ban, having already missed about 18 games in the recent past. And then both benches got involved. Peter Murphy, one of their coaches, who was funny enough on my journalism course many years ago, he was sent off. Erbil Bozkurt, the City goalkeeper, was sent off as well. So that comes on the back of Marko Selatovic being sent off at Southampton on Saturday for something he said to Sam Allison, the referee there. So it's all a bit. I spoke to Liam Miller after the game and sort of said, "What the hell happened?" And he was like, "Well, it was just a lot of nothing, a lot of pushing and shoving." But yeah, I mean, the Birmingham thing wasn't their fault. That was Chris Davis's fault. But they get lumped with I think 25 grand. Stoke obviously happens, and that was a bit unseemly. They get a 50 grand fine. So, and last night was instigated by Osmajic, although Heckingbottom said that Erbil, the City goalkeeping coach, went into their technical area. So they'll be fined again. So yeah, I mean, we're probably going to have to start setting up a GoFundMe, aren't we, to try and pay this off, because it's getting, they are going to get in hot water. It's the third time in the space, well, since the Birmingham game where, I like it. I like the fact they stick up for each other. I like the fact that they're not pushovers, but it is going to cost the owner in his pocket.
Yeah, 100 grand, maybe 75 grand, 100 grand, something like that. They'll presumably take it up in increments. I guess we'll wait and see and wait for the wheels of the authorities to turn, however quickly or slowly they turn. Danny Smith wanted to know whether City will get defensive cover for Ajayi. We've talked about that. Joe says, really good group here. Probably need one more centre-back for cover. Think too many signings would damage it. January 24 window is an example. That window hindered our promotion push. I know there's a transfer restriction. Wouldn't put it past the club to find a way to make multiple signings. I suppose you can have too many signings, and they don't need that much, do they? And the spirit and the camaraderie they've got in the squad, I'm sure the coach and all the staff and the owner will be very aware that you can't disrupt it. They've got a precious thing there. BBFM says, what a performance last night. I went to the game. We love you, Sergey. Needs to be sung around the MKM. You is looking like more great business done under these restrictions. Do we think the Collier deal will finalise our January business, or are we set for more surprises? Well, we've sort of discussed that already. And back on McBurnie, Ian Charlton says to the 1904 club, the importance of McBurnie was highlighted massively for the second goal last night. When the ball fell to him, he drew about 6 Preston players to him, leaving Famawo to finish the chance. His best game for City for me last night, for Famawo. Jacob Anderson says, huge setback with the Ajayi news. Hopefully Egan's sub last night was precautionary. Famawo has been excellent the last few games. Don't think the squad needs much change. Additions of Collier and potentially Dowell would be enough to see us over the line, I think. City a joy to watch again. And Andrew Jessup says, could the surprise package of the second half of the season be David Akintola? Been distinctly average before last night. Last night he was sensational, says Jessup. Andrew Jessup. Baz, I can tell that.
Yeah. Bless him, Big Dave. He's a bit of a cult hero, isn't he? One of the nicest guys you could ever wish to meet. And I know he does a lot of work with the Tigers Trust and whatnot. He's a real character. And I was really pleased for him because there was, said this last night, there was, you know, 1 or 2 question marks raised when the team sheet came out, and it was him, not Ndala, coming in for Joseph. But he was very good in the first half. And as I say, that, you know, he made it look easy, but that run and cross for the assist, that's not easy. And we see it so many times, players fudge that. But he got it spot on. So, yeah, I'm pleased for him. Hopefully that cramp is nothing too serious, and he'll be okay for the weekend because, you know, he's a useful player to have in reserve. The one thing they've got to be careful of, and the point you make about camaraderie is that's their biggest asset. The spirit in the squad, the way they are together is, you know, that is their biggest thing, and that can't be upset. And that's what I was saying earlier. It looked like you had been at the club all season, so well had he settled last night, and that'll be the thing with Collier. They want him to settle in, but they've already got. You've obviously got a limit on loan players that you can only name 5 in your matchday squad. You can have as many in the squad as you want, but in your matchday squad you can only name 5. Well, if Collier comes in, that will take it to 6. Well, we expect Collier to come in, so that will take it to 6. Dowell, there's been some discussion whether it would be a loan or whether it would be Rangers would release him from his contract, which he's out of in the summer, and then that would be free. So obviously that would solve that problem, but they would still have a problem in the matchday squad. So let me just quickly run through for those that are a little bit unsure. Amir, Lundstrom, Ndala, Gelhardt, Hirakawa are the 5 that are now in the squad. Collier would be number 6. If Dowell came in on loan, he would be number 7. So that would mean that 2 of them would miss out on a matchday squad. So not ideal. Not implausible, obviously. So that's just something that we need to be aware of. They'll need to be. They will be mindful. Of course, they'll know that. And just on that, as I understand it, there is a clause in the contract that means that Hirakawa wouldn't be able to play against Bristol City at the MKM Stadium in a couple of weeks, as under the terms of the loan. So obviously he would drop out of the squad for that game. But Gelhardt's back looked very, very sharp last night. You've got Ndala, Akintola. Hopefully that cramp is nothing more than cramp and he's fit.
Just let me read 3 sort of final messages because people have been good enough to send them to the 1904 Club. Physio Peck says, I have a feeling you is going to be massive for us for the rest of the season. Wouldn't mind if we get him on a permanent if he keeps playing the way he did last night. Very impressed with his debut. Also, very happy to see Joffy back in black and amber too. Very high hopes, says Physio Peck. Harry Towell says, clearly turned a corner the second half of the season. Jack Jakirovic getting it right from the off. Really impressive considering the injury situation. Slater and Crooks at the centre of magic. Plus, nice to see you. Well, you're nice. There'll be loads of that, won't there? And Dan Adamson says, the manager that keeps on giving, huge credit and appreciation due for what he's doing at the club. But when are the big hitters going to start taking notice of his results and work? And will we get a better offer, or will he get a better offer in the future? Well, I think if he does get a better offer in the future, I think that will be testament to the work he's done at City and is continuing to do at City. And I expect him, like I expect the team to improve, I expect him to improve as a manager because he's learning more about the game. He's got his feet under the table at the club. He'll have a better squad in terms of hopefully reduced injuries and a bit more quality and choice for him coming in the transfer window. So he, like the team, should improve. I wouldn't worry personally. I wouldn't worry about him at the moment. See where they're at the end of the season and take it from there. But definitely, people will be noticing. I'm sure they are now, Baz.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing a phenomenal job. And his career record suggests that he moves on every couple of seasons. So, and that's his right. It's his career. He'll want to manage at the highest level, and City have given him the opportunity. No reason to suggest he won't be loyal to that. And as I say, see where City are at the end of the season, because he could be managing in the Premier League with Hull City, genuinely. And that's not, I know it seems mad to say, but they've got as good a chance as anybody. They really have. And just to finish, it was really nice last night to hear the fans chanting his name, because it's been a while. It's taken a while for the chance of in support of Jakirovic to really take off. But the 850 or so hardy souls that trekked across to Deepdale last night were singing his name throughout the game, and that was really nice. And there was a mutual adulation between him and the supporters. So that's long may that continue. Right, Burnsy, that's it for this episode. Thank you for your time as always.
No problems. Enjoyed it as always. Thank you to everybody that sent us messages. Much appreciated. Keeps us going, because otherwise it'd just be me, Baz, and some bloke in a car park talking rubbish. So you point us in the right direction.
Absolutely, yeah. Appreciate all your comments, and on Facebook as well, and on the old YouTube. So that's it from this episode of the 1904 Club. City 4th in the Championship after last night's win at Preston. Back at home to Swansea City on Saturday, and we will talk to you after that. Up the Tigers.